Jr., second edition, chapter 2. The End of the Elephant Empire. It was no ordinary army of jackals that had been taking us prisoner. These soldiers wore metal armor and helmets that made them a most frightening pack of dogs. That is, I think Barnaby, Babette, and Bridget were frightened. I, of course, am a cat. And cats, as everyone knows, feel a certain, shall we say, animosity towards most creatures of the canine persuasion. I felt nothing but contempt for these puny pups. One-on-one, I could have handled any of them easily. But since we were greatly outnumbered and our wrists and ankles were tied up, I decided to keep myself in check. Besides, I had a feeling we wouldn't be prisoners for long. I never learned about any place like this in geography class, said Bridget, shaking her head. Boy, when things go wrong. Something tells me we're not in France anymore, agreed Barnaby. I could ask them where we are if you like, offered Babette. Yeah, if you spoke dog you could, snorted Bridget. They're jackals, actually, and I did pick up a working knowledge of their language while I was on safari last year. Their poetry is excellent, although somewhat primitive. Bridget tried to think of a clever retort, but all she could say was, "Yeah, right. And I hear they're all portrait painters in their spare time. Dogs Playing Pool by Fido is one of my favorite pieces." Barnaby snickered. "There's no need to be sarcastic," replied Babette, calmly turning away from her companions. Then she made some odd growling noises, followed by a short bark and a couple of whimpers, apparently in the direction of the guard behind her. She got no response. "They don't seem to understand you," Barnaby commented. Babette ignored him and repeated her question to the guard. "Save it, sister," barked the dog suddenly in English. "Your accent is hurting my ears. And pick up your smart aleck friend there. Kind of awkward, isn't she? She's tripped over her own feet." Bridget had indeed fallen over from the sheer shock of hearing the dog speak. Babette helped her up, but she remained stunned and just stood there gaping at the jackal. "Close your mouth, kiddo," said the jackal, "and let me give you a word of advice. You're in the animal kingdom now. This is our domain. And as long as you're on our turf, you would do well to be a little more respectful and a little less impudent. For example, I didn't like the way you knocked our artistic abilities just now. You shouldn't disparage things you know nothing about. And from what's come out of your mouth so far, that's a lot. Do I make myself clear?" Bridget continued to stare. "Do you comprehend what I have just told you? Quit giving me that bovine stare. You look as dumb as a cow," he snarled. "Yes, I'm very sorry," stuttered Bridget. "That's better. Now look, we have nothing against you humans personally, but too bad you have that cat with you. We absolutely loathe the cats. Sneaky little devils. Mostly spies. And you should have known better than to land in the middle of a troop movement." "But we didn't mean to come here," blurted Barnaby. "We just ran into adverse weather conditions above Paris and—" "Oh, yeah? Then how do you explain the cat?" yipped the jackal. But as I was saying, we really have nothing against you. Even the cat might not be so bad. We've hired cats as spies now and then ourselves. But you have to understand, the situation here is tense. Until a few days ago, the Jackal Army was united in revolution. We were working to overthrow the Elephant Empire and hold free, democratic elections to every animal that inhabits this region, from antelopes to zebras. But General Horus got greedy. He decided to turn the revolution into some kind of holy war. All creatures must come under submission to the word of dog, he said. Well, that's the last thing we needed. Get rid of one authoritarian government only to replace it with an even crazier dictatorship. The jackal shook his head in disgust. Well, our Colonel Cano spoke up against the idea right away, but as it turned out, Horus wasn't prepared to accept any form of dissent or disagreement, and he planned to have Cano executed. So, that same night, Cano and all of us broke off to form our own faction. We're hoping other animal armies will help us carry out the revolution and keep Horus out of power. And where are you taking us? Asked Babette. We're taking you back to camp. Colonel Cano will want to meet you, he replied. Thanks for the information, said Bridget, who had somehow regained the ability to speak. By the way, my name is Bridget, and this is Babette and Barnaby. I'm Lieutenant Lassitarius, folks. Folks call me Lassie for short. Bridget thought it best not to make a joke. When they reached camp, they saw many soldiers gathered around, as if waiting for something to happen. At first, they were quite quiet and patient, but after 5 minutes or so, they started barking and stomping their feet, clamoring for whatever it was they were waiting for. Finally, a big, important-looking jackal with grayish fur appeared at the front of the room, and with one sharp bark, he silenced the boisterous crowd. From the way he looked, so noble and powerful, so full of dignity, Barnaby, Bridget, and Babette correctly assumed it was Cano. He began speaking in Jackal, and you didn't have to understand the words to know Cano was a gifted orator who knew how to hold an audience. He barked, growled, leaped around, and yipped his way to such a stirring climax that all the jackals, including Lassie, began to howl with excitement. I'd follow him anywhere, sighed Lassie. Then suddenly, he let out a bark in the colonel's direction. Cano's ears pricked up as he noticed Lassie. He came right over. It's unanimous, cried Cano. We voted, and every single jackal has agreed to fight till the end to keep Horus out of power. I told you not to doubt our loyalty, sir, said Lassie. That was some speech you just gave. Well, to tell the truth, I hadn't planned on giving a speech. It was just one of those impromptu, spur-of-the-moment things, you know. I ad-libbed the whole thing. Well, it was pretty amazing for a speech you made up as you went along. You were speaking from the heart, and we're with you. We'll teach that wacko a lesson, the lieutenant replied. I believe fanatic is more accurate than wacko, Lassie. He's not crazy, he's just, well, let's just say he's dangerously full of enthusiasm and zeal. Anyway, look what we found on patrol today, Colonel. said Lassie, jerking his head toward the prisoners. I see, said the Jackal. A few humans and... Hey, Beauregard, you old son of a gun! What are you doing here? Well, that looks like a pretty good place to pause for today. So, they left Paris. Bridget blew a bubble with her bubble gum. They jumped on her legs, flew, ended up in a storm, and the next thing you know, they're in the middle of the animal empire, tied up, taken capture by the Jackal army, and there's some sort of elephant empire deal that we'll learn about. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed that. Till next time, who loves you, baby? This guy, don't forget it. Remember, you're somebody's favorite person out there, probably mine. Till next time, love you, and goodbye.